Hey guys, Jason here from Mammoth Cave Survival. I'm out here on a beautiful September day. I had a little bit of time free in my schedule and I decided I needed to come out here and make a video. I know I've been slacking here lately, and for that I do apologize, but thank you guys for all the love that you've been showing us on YouTube. But today we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about crawfish traps. Crawfish, mud bugs, crawdaddies, crawdads, whatever you call them. We've got them pretty much all over the United States. Now down in the deep south, they've got a lot more and they grow a lot bigger than they do, say, for instance, here in Kentucky. But that doesn't mean that we don't have them. And it doesn't mean that they can't be a useful tool. Down in Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, crawfish make an excellent food source. Here in Kentucky, they don't typically get that big, or at least not very many of them do. But they aren't useless at that point. Just because they're a little bit smaller doesn't mean you can't find a use for them. They make great fishing bait. They also make great bait, for instance, if you're trapping, whether it be raccoons or foxes or whatever the case may be. So these guys can come in pretty handy. Now, if you go out to a sporting goods store and you can buy a crawfish trap, those are typically anywhere from $7 to $15 for the smaller ones, and then they can go up in price from there. And well, I just don't like to spend a lot of money. If I do, that gets me in trouble. So don't necessarily want to do that, but there's plenty of stuff that I can find around the house that we can use to make crawfish traps, or even just go out to the local Dollar Tree and spend a couple of dollars and come back with some stuff. So I've got 3 different types of crawfish traps here. 2 of them are similar, and then one of them's kind of more similar to what you would see out at your local crawfish, or at your local sporting goods store. So we'll start with that one. This guy right here, I made, took a trip down to the Dollar Tree and found 2 waste baskets. Pretty simple, wire mesh, spent $1 a piece, so $2 on this trap. Came through, took a pair of wire snips, cut the bottom, and just kind of coned it in. Little bit of an opening on both sides, and then zip tied it together using small zip ties. Now some people might try to paint this black. I've used it a couple different times. White doesn't seem to scare off the crayfish, so I haven't painted it. Basically, to have a crawfish trap, you just need to remember one thing. You need to make something that a crawfish can crawl into easily and not get out of very easily. So for instance, when we cone the bottom of this in and cut an opening there, the crawfish, when they come up to the base of the trap, follow that natural indentation that we have in the cone there. Once they get in, it's a lot harder for them to find that hole to come back out. Now, what do I use to bait my crawfish traps? I've used a lot of different things. I've used lunch meat, I've used shrimp, I've used dog food, both wet and dry. A lot of different things that these guys will eat. They're kind of like little scavengers on the bottom of the creek bed or river bed. So you can use a lot of different things to get those guys. I've also got a trap that is a lot simpler, easy to make. This was made out of a 2-liter bottle. Basically, I cut the top off, I inverted it, I took a pair of hole punch, and went through and cut little holes along the top, and did the same thing here, so that when I placed it down in there, I could just simply take a zip tie and stick it right through the hole, and then use that to close it up. Basically, it's the same premise though. We're using an inverted funnel so that the crawfish can crawl in, and it's a lot harder to find that coming back out. Pretty simple, didn't cost me anything to make because I had zip ties laying around the house, and well, we go through a couple 2 liters a week. So this is basically just recycling the trash. Now I did go through and I drilled a lot of holes, or sometimes I'll just take a pocket knife and cut those holes, because well, this plastic has a tendency to trap air, and so it doesn't sink down in the water very well. It's also important to remember that you're probably going to have to stick something in here to weigh it down. Unlike the metal wire mesh baskets, this wants to float, and so you can take a couple bigger size rocks and stick it down in there, and you've got you a good way to catch your crawfish I'm spending very little money. Now, something else I had laying around here at the house were these old jugs. Actually, I think they came with rock salt in it, or kitty litter. I can't remember exactly which one. But basically, I did the same exact thing there. I went through and I poked my holes in it, and then I also took my hole punch and made holes to connect my little zip ties with, like I still have on the back. And then this is actually the inverted, or the top end of a little bit larger bottle. Actually, I think it was sweet tea, if I remember correctly. It gives it a little bit bigger hole for those crawfish to go in, so I can actually catch bigger crawfish this way. I stuck it right here and simply took hot glue and glued it around. Now, it has been sitting in the back of my truck, been rolling around for a few days, so it has broken loose. But if you're just using it to set it down in the water, it works pretty good. Something else that I have found is sometimes if you take one of these bigger bottle tops and stick it in there, the crawfish can crawl back out. So sometimes it's a little bit easier to go ahead and take maybe something mesh, like a pantyhose, for instance. You can take your pantyhose, you can cut the tip of it off right there at the foot, leaving the toe in about that much. Just kind of stick it on here, wrap a rubber band around it where the rest of the pantyhose kind of dangle off, and then cut the end of it off. This basically allows the crawfish to crawl in and push their way through the pantyhose, but when they try to get back out, it's a lot harder for them to get back out. Now, depending on what part of the country you're in, they might have regulations on what your crawfish traps can be as far as size and how they're made and stuff like that. Here in Kentucky, they're a little bit lax because, like I said, we don't have a large crawfish population. They are here naturally, and they tend to stay a little bit smaller. But when you go down south where they actually have a crawfish season and high crawfish production, they do have regulations on that. So it's always a good idea to check with your local Fish and Wildlife department, see what you can and can't do. Here in Kentucky, we do have a regulation on your minnow traps, which in a lot of instances are extremely similar to your crawfish traps. So just to play it safe, I typically try to follow the guidelines on those. So if the game warden was to show up and ask me what I was doing, it didn't matter if he believed that I was really trying to catch crawfish or not. I'd still fall under the guidelines for those minnow traps too. But it's really important to check those and make sure that you comply with all rules and regulations. Well, guys, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to comment there on the bottom. Send us an email, go to our Facebook page, Mammoth Cave Survival, like our page, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I promise I'm going to try to get better at getting these videos uploaded. And again, thank you guys very much. I hope you all have a great day.